Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Aiden. I just finished my second year here at NYU, as well as a full year of organic chemistry. So in this video, I just wanted to be talking to you guys about some ways, like tips and tricks that I use to help succeed in organic chemistry. And just a disclaimer before I get into things, I'm not a genius by any sort of means. I study a lot, and if I can do well in the course, it means that any of you can as well. I fully believe that. When I first came into organic chemistry, I was pretty terrified. I remember looking at some like upperclassmen's notes and being like, what the heck is going on? Like, I see all these sort of weird arrows and things, and it's completely normal. I remember texting like all my upperclassmen friends like, oh my God, like I'm gonna fail this course, like just help me. It was sort of just panicking in that moment, but don't worry as much as I did. The main thing with organic chemistry is that it's sort of like a language that you've never seen before. You know, you've seen Gen Chem, bio, all those sort of things. Orgo, it tests a completely different side of your brain, which you haven't really used, I'm going to be completely honest. And it's really useful in that way, but it can be pretty frustrating at first. The initial part is the learning curve, right? So anytime you're learning something new, there's an initial learning curve. That's going to be right at the start of Orgo 1. And I will say, I think for me, that was the toughest time. It can be pretty frustrating. Like, I remember drawing out resonance structures, the most basic concept in Orgo, like for hours on end. And I was just like, this is not making sense. And then I think at one point in time, like everything will just sort of click. And once it clicks for you, and that's when you know you made it over the hill, and everything sort of seems to get a bit easier after that. So that's my advice that I have, is be very patient in the beginning. Don't get too frustrated with yourself. Orgo 1, you're going to be mostly learning like the building blocks and fundamentals of organic chemistry. So stereochemistry, isomers, chair conformations, basic alkene reactions, all that kind of sort of stuff. And then Orgo 2 is just reaction. Diels-Alder, EAS, NAS, carbonyl, it's pretty crazy. But they're very different from one another, I would say. Let me just see what I have. So the main tip that I would have is don't memorize the course. You definitely can't. It's way too much stuff, and this is a common pitfall that people have, is to just go in and being, okay, I can memorize this does this, then this does this, which is good, but it's very important to actually understand the underlying mechanism why this is happening. Like, why is this substitution reaction preferred over this elimination reaction, or why is this nucleophile better than this one? If you can do that, it's going to help you a lot, just because your foundations are going to be so strong that when things start to build on one another, you're going to be okay, like this is why we use this instead of this, or like this is how you protect a group, for example, and this is why we don't use this reagent. So that's going to be pretty beneficial. And one other tip that I have is, before you go to lecture, this is an NYU thing, probably true for other universities as well. In lecture, they move very fast, and it can kind of be surface level sometimes. They're just going like boom, 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 boom. And you walk out of lecture and you're just like, oh my God, what just happened? So I would highly recommend reading the textbook beforehand. It can be super dense and you can get frustrated while reading it, but just like take a couple deep breaths, just work through it, and it will be pretty helpful. Just that way lecture can help like fill in content gaps, and it's not your primary method of learning. Then after lecture, the main thing that you want to be doing, guys, and like if you're taking one thing away from this video, it would be this: practice, practice, practice. So the number of problems that you do in organic chemistry, and being able to understand where you're going wrong and why you are, or why things are working out, is the most fundamental thing. With Orgo, practice is the most important thing that you're doing. You need to get your hands on every single practice problem that you can and do them. And if you get it wrong, you need to revisit why you got it wrong. Did I make this mistake? Or did I assume that this was stronger than this reagent? Like something like that. And if you could identify those mistakes and capitalize on your weaknesses, it's going to help you so much for your exam, because so much of organic chemistry is actually just pattern recognition, if that makes sense. Like, you're going to see something in one context, and then on your exam or quiz, you might see something in a different context. But if you can recognize that, hey, I think I've seen this before, if that makes sense, then it's going to be so much more beneficial for you. Another tip I have is, people tell you don't study with friends, it's not good. That changes completely for organic chemistry. Organic chemistry, I strongly recommend you work in a group of 2 to 3 people. For me, I had 3 partners. I had Khan, Dhruv, and Daniel. Daniel, me and him we were pretty much going like every day for organic chemistry. So it's really beneficial, just because if you can have somebody explain something to you, it fundamentally changes everything. Like, there were a lot of problems that I struggled with that Daniel or somebody else would just pick up like that. And they were able to explain it to me, saying, hey, you made this mistake, and I could see their work, and it helped me so much. So I would highly recommend that. Let me think. One other thing that I would have a big recommendation for is stereochemistry is a very important unit that you're going to learn in Orgo 1. Definitely try to prioritize that as much as you can, and it will help a lot. And you'll notice that your exams are just going to be kind of testing the same thing as you're learning in the textbook and other problems. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult, or just going to be in a context that you haven't seen before. So if you can see like patterns and things early on, it's going to help a lot more for the exam. Another thing is Orgo for sure is a marathon. It's not a sprint by any means. You cannot cram for this course. I've seen very few people do it, but please do not cram. Try to do at least like an hour, 30 minutes every day. It's going to help you so much more in the long run, just because the course builds on itself. A reaction that you learned from 2 months ago could suddenly show up. And if you forget it like that, it's going to be a lot tougher, as opposed to having it reinforced in your long-term memory, if that makes sense. And then use your resources. NYU has something called SLGs, student learning groups. Please go to these. They saved my butt 100 times. The problems were great, and you work through things in a group environment on whiteboards, and I strongly recommend those. And I would say that if you have a strong foundation early on from Orgo 1 and in your past, Orgo 2 will become a lot easier. I found Orgo 2 way easier than Orgo 1 just because it's kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And my last and final tip that I would have is use YouTube. People say that, oh, YouTube isn't the best, you can get distracted. If you stay focused, it is so helpful. There are 2 YouTube channels that I will recommend that saves me so many times. The first one is Chad's Prep on YouTube. He is super great. His concepts and mechanisms are super in-depth, and they can be very helpful. And the second YouTuber, please check this guy out. I don't know how he hasn't blown up yet. His name is Organic Chemistry Tutor with Victor. You can search up any reaction, any sort of question, just put it in the YouTube search bar and then Organic Chemistry with Victor, and his channel will come up. And his videos are the most in-depth videos I've seen. And it's extremely helpful because he goes over good problems, very good problems, and then also the mechanisms as to why they're working and things like that. And there were actually a couple questions, for example, which I just like watched his videos on the test. It's like just like the same thing in like a completely different context, but it's pretty similar. If I hadn't watched that video, I don't know how well I would have done on the test. So watch those videos for sure. They're extremely useful. And yeah, it's definitely not that bad. It's not the easiest. It's not an easy course for sure. I think it was one of the hardest courses I took. But you can do well. It's not hard. It's not impossible to do well with dedicated time. It just requires a lot of discipline and patience for sure. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you with anything. And good luck with everything. You guys got this.